Welcome everybody to our biannual masterclass for early years providers. So this is our October masterclass. We've got quite a lot on this evening. So if you just bear with us, we're just waiting for one or two people to arrive. But can you please be aware of your environmental noise, and please mute your microphones if you've got your microphone on. It's just so that everybody can hear properly the presentations. And also this session is being recorded, so please don't have your cameras on. We won't be showing anybody's faces in the video that we produce at the end of this. That will be uploading to YouTube, so that you can actually access it at a later date and share it with other people that you work with. But it's just really just as a precautionary thing anyway. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions within the chat as well. So as I said, all of our masterclasses are recorded, and the slides and the recording will be available from our website, safeguardingchildren.co.uk, under the professionals section and the learning for professionals. You can also access our masterclass and this session later on. It'll be in a day or so from our YouTube channel. So that is youtube.com/@nyscp. At the risk of sounding like a famous YouTuber, can you please like and subscribe and click the bell icon so that you will actually get notifications of when we are releasing more of these videos, because we do release a couple of videos a month, a lot of which will be relevant for you, such as our normal masterclasses and that sort of thing. And following the courses, please don't forget to go back onto NYES and complete the questionnaire so you can get your certificate for your CPD as well. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Rachel Yeadon. Rachel, if you want to present over me.
Absolutely, yes. And I'm joined by Simone Wilkinson, who is going to start off with the presentation. So just bear with me while I just upload my presentation. Hopefully you can see this loading.
Yes, that's come through.
Okay, so Simone is going to start off. Simone, if you just, I can't actually see it.
No, I can't see the presentation either, Rachel. I can just see a dark screen. I think oh, there we go.
Has it come? I still can't see
it,
so I'm in the dark. Do you want to can you take control, Simone, to start?
Yeah.
Please.
Hopefully that will then work. So we'll see how we go. So good evening, everybody. Tonight's session, what we're going to look at is we're going to sort of introduce some work that the early help team, sorry, it's off-putting into it when you can see all the messages popping up. The early help team are going to be doing with the Safeguarding Partnership. So we want to start off by introducing some work that we're going to do and get some ideas and some thoughts from yourself, and then we'll lead into some of the work that Rachel's been doing as well. So hopefully it should work smoothly. Let's see how we go. So what we wanted to talk to you tonight about was harmful sexual behaviour. So as I've mentioned, the partnership has strategic priority to really tackle child sexual behaviour in all its forms. So we've identified the need to better understand harmful sexual behaviour across North Yorkshire. So in order to do that, we've applied some additional funding for the NSPCC to do an audit, which is going to start in January this year. So what we thought we would do first, we'd just give you some information about this so that you can go back to your different organisations, you can have a think about this and start to really understand what it is and how you'd like to be involved. So sexual behaviours are expressed by children and young people under the age of 18, and they are developmental, inappropriate, which may be harmful towards themselves or others, or abusive towards other children, young people or adults. So that's from the Hackett 2014 continuum. So really what it's saying is that it's about actions that are outside of what's safe for a young person's stage of development. So thinking about in an early years setting, you might come across children and young people that there's that development stage is where they're more curious about their bodies, where you might be in a setting and you might get 3-year-olds actually showing each other their underwear. So that's, you know, certainly isn't any cause for concern. But you might get other children, 3 or 4-year-olds, that are quite obsessed with touching, that actually, even when you've explained to them that actually it's not appropriate, you've had that conversation with them and moved them on to something else, that actually that happens quite a lot and you're starting to get a little bit worried about it. So that's the context that we're looking at in early years. So it's used to describe a continuum of sexual behaviours from inappropriate to problematic to abusive. So we're looking at that whole spectrum of harmful sexual behaviour. So I've just put some headliners there about what the data, this is national data, tells us that around 1/3 of children are sexually abused by other children. There is crossover between online and offline harmful sexual behaviour. It's commonly identified in adolescent boys, but girls and younger children can also exhibit harmful sexual behaviour. And that's why we really feel for the audit, it's important for all sectors to feed into that. So when we've looked at the current issues in North Yorkshire, we feel that there's probably a lack of appropriate training for support for all staff across all agencies. There's inconsistent responses to allegations regarding harmful sexual behaviours in children and young people. And there's a poor clarity around communication and sharing of information. And also that joined up work in that service delivery. So that's some of the things in the steering group we've been talking about, and hence the need to do a real thorough audit of what is it really like in North Yorkshire and how do people feed into that so we can start to really develop a harmful sexual behaviour strategy. So what we're going to do is we've come together as a partnership to start to look at the planning stage. As I've mentioned, we're going to have a launch event, and that's the date that's been set now for the 17th of January. And then what we're hoping to do is invite a number of you to that launch event. It will be online via Teams. It will be about 3 hours long, and it will really be an overview from the NSPCC about the context of harmful sexual behaviour, and really an opportunity to feed into that audit. We'll be sending an audit out for all sectors to complete, and then the NSPCC will gather those findings, and then we'll come together again via Teams to actually look at what does the finding tell us. So what is the picture like in North Yorkshire? And then from that, we'll be able to implement a strategy. So from this, I know we've sort of led into this straight away at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. So you're thinking, goodness, this is a bit hardcore for a Wednesday night. So again, we just thought it was a real opportunity tonight to start to get you to think about it, because it's probably a term that you haven't come across much in your settings. So to start to think about what is harmful sexual, what does it mean to me and my organisation, have a chat with your colleagues about that, and then to look out for that launch details so that we can start to put some save the dates in people's calendars for next January. And then hopefully what we want is as many of the audits completed, so therefore we can really understand what that's like across all the different sectors and also across North Yorkshire. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight, and we will be sharing these slides with you this evening.
Thank you.
Thinking about when you've got worries and concerns about children and young people in your setting, we thought it was useful to link in to the support via the early help offer. So it nicely leads into Rachel's section.
Thank you, Simone. And I can't see the slides. I know I can't see the slides, unfortunately. So if you don't mind doing the slides for me, Simone, that would be great. Which slide are you on currently at the moment? Are you on the one that says referrals and support?
I'm on to what happens after referral is made.
Oh, brilliant. Right. OK. So when a referral is made and it comes into MAST, it goes into MAST, which stands for Multi-Agency Screening Team. And that referral and the information contained within that referral is added onto our system, which is called EHM or LCS, whichever database we're looking at. It's usually at the early health module that it goes on first of all. Then it gets reviewed by a qualified social worker to determine what that immediate level of need identified is. So does it need screening because we've got immediate safeguarding issues, or does it need to go to somewhere to be screened even further for a clear recommendation about what those next steps are going to be? And then depending on what that information is contained within the referral, the other information that we've got in our systems about that young person, the information gathered from other agencies, so our police colleagues, our CAMS colleagues, our early help colleagues, I say the social workers, health colleagues, we look to determine where the next steps are going to be, who is best placed to offer that support for that young person, that child and that family at any given time. And once the recommendations are made, they get signed off by a social worker again, by the managers, so there's complete oversight from beginning to end of that whole screening process. And early help consultants, of which I'm the senior early help consultant in the West. I've got counterparts in the county, which we'll talk about in a moment. We also are involved in that mass duty rota as well now, so that we get oversight of those lower level referrals to determine what the next steps are going to be. And as you can see there at the bottom row, it talks about the family assessment and support team. So that's when it needs to be allocated because we've got some safeguarding concerns. These are all with consent as well, all of these different stages. We have the early help service, where that will be allocated to a children and family worker within the teams to go out and do an assessment. The early help assessment stage, which is 2AB, and I'll talk about in a moment in more detail, that's where the early help consultants are involved. The healthy child team, or it can be information and advice. So they're the different screening outcomes that we're talking about where there aren't immediate safeguarding risk of harm to that child. The next slide, please, Simone, thank you. So if I need to move on at the same time, don't I, on my presentation here. So we have something called the framework for decision making. And if you haven't already seen this before, I'm sure Hayden's talked about this in previous sessions with you. Please do go onto the website to have a look at it. It's an absolute Bible of information. It's really, really worthwhile looking at to see how some decisions are made. And we try not to talk about thresholds as much now. We try to talk about why it may be assigned to different departments, different services, different levels of intervention within our care, because we know that there's no linear line really. There's lots of interventions and families where they can go up and down and they can yo-yo in between services. So the framework for decision making really helps us think about who is the best fit to provide that support for families at any given time. And it does go into an awful lot more detail about what the presenting behaviours may be, what you might be identifying to help you to try and understand where we think those concerns are. The next slide, please, Simone. It includes a continuum of need. And this is really the windscreen wiper, the range of where families can go through our different services. Starting off on the left-hand side where we have the universal services, where the families don't need any external support from different agencies. It's a single agency approach. They're getting that support that's needed at that moment in time. And we feel that no other involvement is needed from children and family services. Then we move into the yellow segment, which is the early help segment, and that's split into 3 sections. I'll come on to talk about that in a little bit more detail. Moving over to the right-hand side, the orange segment, that's where we're starting to get where we have got some real concerns. Again, consent-based. The yellow and the orange segment are all consent-based with the families. And where we have some concerns where we're starting to think there are some issues rising where we need to really get involved. And the orange segment is our FAST colleagues, the family assessment team. Then moving into the red sector is where we're talking child protection level, where we need to get that really targeted support in. But if we just go back quickly to the yellow segment in there, it's split into 2A, 2B and 2C. And this is where we really want to be working alongside you with our early years partners, beg my pardon, get my language right, to be identifying as soon as we've got those concerns arising with families where they may say to you, we're struggling a little bit, where we first identify there's some areas of support that's needed. The early help consultants work at level 2A and 2B. And that's where you as the agency, you as the early help early years setting still own that information for that family. It's not a referral into our service, but it's how we can come from early help to offer some support to you, to offer that support to the families. And that may be through something called an early help assessment. We may have a TAF meeting. It may be that we need to identify onto a different agency, but it's not a referral into our service. If we do that work with you at level 2A and 2B, it may be identified that there is a need for a referral to come in, and we as the early help consultants can help facilitate that. But it's a journey that we take the families on, so we have real informed consent and they understand why a referral is being made and what the probability is of what the support offered will be. They're part of that action plan, so it's really, really important that we can get in there as soon as possible and have those conversations. We're working alongside the families rather than doing two, so that's a really positive thing. Next slide, please, Simon. So the early help consultants, I've said, we're there to help you in the settings within your work, help you to identify how we can maybe have those difficult conversations with families that's sometimes really difficult to say. If you notice things and the families haven't come and shared their concerns with you, it can really be a way of us being able to come along and help you have those conversations, think about how we're going to frame those conversations. On the slide, it talks about set at schools quite a lot, but substitute the schools for your settings, because we very, very much do work with the early years sector as well. I know that the area I cover in Harrogate, we're very, very heavily involved in an early years setting there at the moment, who've got some real concerns about the families, and equally likewise one in Craven. And we do get quite a lot of referrals in. We can provide that information and advice. If you don't know where to go, if you don't know you're concerned but you're not quite sure what to do, speak to your local consultants. We're there as that helping ear if need be, that listening ear, to try and give you some guidance that you may need. And then, as I say, if we do need to have a meeting with the family, we can pull a plan together with that family to identify who's going to be the right support at the right time for that family. Moving on, Simon, thank you. The contact details for us: I'm the senior in the West area, and I have a counterpart, John Coates, in the central team, and then Amy Magson over in the East team. Our contact details are on this slide here. The phone numbers are for the locality hubs. If you ring that and say you would like to speak to an early help consultant, if you don't know who your named one is, I'm really hoping that the majority of you do know who your named consultant are. We do regularly send out things, lots of information to you. We're hopefully that you get that. Please ring these numbers and we'll put you in touch with people, or if you prefer, please put a question in the chat bar and I'll make sure that we join you up with the right people. If it's a safeguarding concern, we're not the right people for you to speak to. If it's a safeguarding concern, we do need you to speak to the professional consultation line. And they may then say, speak to your local consultant because it's not safeguarding, and that's absolutely fine. But if you have got those concerns where you think it's safeguarding, please do go to the professional consultation line. And again, the number is on there for you. And you don't need consent to speak to the professional consultation line either. Next slide, please, Simon. We have a free training offer for all of you as well, and I'm hoping some of you have been on our training offer. We do a session, Early Help for Early Years, which is all about all the different roles and remits that we've got within our early help service, and how we're going into a lot more detail than this very quick overview I'm giving you today. If you do have if you want more information about that, please let me know, or please go on the North Yorkshire Education website, because all the details and all the links to all our different sessions are on there. We have lots and lots of sessions, things like ACEs, understanding ACEs. We have a parental conflict, and Caroline is going to talk about in more detail later on. We talk about how to complete an assessment, lots of things, so please do look at that if you haven't already. And the next slide, please, Simon. Something that you'll have heard me talk about if you've been along to my sessions before. I do talk about the Solihull parenting, but this is an offer for all North Yorkshire residents. It's free offer for all North Yorkshire residents, so that could be carers, grandparents, separated parents, anybody at all. All you need to do is to log on to the website as detailed on the postcard there and put in the code NY Families, and there's a whole raft of free courses available, again including parental conflict, but there's lots of things on understanding your child, understanding your teenager, understanding trauma. They're being added to all the time, all the courses, so I would urge anybody to go along and have a look at those, please. You don't need to we don't get the details of who's registered for these courses, so they can be fully anonymous. All we get to find out is the area that people have registered from, so the geographical areas from that. So please do, if you haven't already, share the details. And the last slide, please, Simone. Just talks in a little bit more detail about some of the courses and the details on there. As I said, there have been a lot more added to since this slide was added. So please do go on and have a look at them. They're in modular form. They're really easy to access. And currently, in the 2 years we've been offering this, we have about 2,700 parents and carers over North Yorkshire that's accessed them, and the feedback has been really positive. And I must say, for professionals as well, they are really informative as CPD to do with your staff training. Anything along those, please go and utilise them. You can just put in your settings postcode. So that's us done. Thank you very, very much for listening. If you do have any questions, sorry.
I think it's just worth mentioning, Rachel, that we also have lots of marketing material for the Solihull Parenting Programme. So if you want to put things on your Facebook pages, or you want to put some things on your website, if you let us know, we can send that out, because as I say, these courses are all free. So again, if you want to promote them to your families that you're working with, again, please let us know, because we send you all the marketing packs out to do that as well.
Thank you very much.
Is there any questions? Have we got time for any questions? We're trying to stick to our time, which is really difficult for me and Rachel. We like to talk, don't we?
No. There's time for questions. I mean, if anybody obviously has got any questions, or if you don't want to pop it in the chat bar, and I don't know, Hayden, whether they can come off mute. I don't know if they've been muted.
Yeah, they can come off mute.
Oh, lovely, thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you did, just come off mute, and please just ask and ask Rachel and Simone anything really early help.
Or please let us know if you've all heard of your early help consultant, if they've been into your settings. It would be really useful to have some feedback.
I think as well, regarding the training programme, it's worth mentioning that, again, we're working with the partnership to really review our training offer. So as probably some of you know, we've been running that for the last 3 years. So we're really looking about how we can update that. So Helen's involved in that group as well. So we're going to be looking at how we can do some more video clips, how we can do, really layer up your understanding of different elements. So again, anything that you feel that you want more information of, please let us know, or give Helen a ring, or send her a message, because we really want your input to make sure that that training offer fits your needs and also fits the needs of your workers in your setting. So please let us know.
Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. I can't see any questions.
No, I can't see any either. So shall we hand over to Gail Sykes from the NSPCC?
Thank you.
Rachel, excuse me, just before we move on, Judith just puts in, no one's been in recently, but how recent is recent? How often would they sort of expect?
They should be contacted at least half-termly where something is made. They don't always come and visit all the time, depending on if they're busy. I know in Craven, is that Judith Robinson from East Bean yeah, absolutely. I know Debbie only works part-time and she's incredibly busy at the moment, so that's probably why you've just not heard from her recently, but I'll certainly pass it on, because we do try to make contact and share things, but they should be in regular contact, as I say, with information. It should be a regular mail shot that's going out, so if not, please do let me know.
Yeah, by contact, Rachel, you mean as well, sort of like by email contacts as well, as not just the physical, don't you?
Thank you. A long time ago, we'd do like a schedule visits, but obviously just because of staffing issues, we don't do that anymore. But what we tend to do is making sure you get regular emails, regular contact in its broadest sense. But also, on the other hand, if you did want people to come out and visit you, I know the consultants are always happy to do that. So just give your consultant a ring and ask them to come out to see you if that's the preferred method that you would like.
And just very quickly, sorry, Gail, I know we're in your section
No,
now.
yes,
If you do want anybody to come out to talk to your team and to do some training, specific training on that, please let us know as well, because we have done that previously, where we can come out and do some one-to-one session on what it is that you're really thinking about. If you've got some concerning families, please do let us know.
Thank you. Sorry, Gail. I told
Lovely,
you.
thank you. Thank you. No, sorry, that was my fault. I just saw them. I just thought it was worthwhile you were both still here. But we won't keep you, Gail, because we know Gail's given up her evening because it's her actual wedding anniversary today. So she's here, and then when she's finished presenting, going off for dinner with her husband. So we're very, very grateful, Gail, that you are joining us this evening. So thank you very much.
No worries. I think he's grateful as well, because I think it's given him extra time. I heard the back door go to go and get me my card. So yeah, no worries. No worries at all. So hello, everybody. I'm Gail Sales. I'm a local campaigns manager for the NSPCC. I cover the Yorkshire, Humber and North East patch, so just a little bitty patch. And as part of my role, I help deliver some of our national campaigns locally, such as our Look, Say, Sing, Play, which is a great campaign which is all about building babies' brains. Also Talk Pants, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I also run local campaigns to reflect local needs. So, for example, at the moment, I'm running an online safety campaign in Doncaster, for example. And as part of my role too, I offer online safety workshops. These are free, and we have a number of ways you can have these. There's a weekly Zoom, which if you'd like to signpost your parents to, please do get in touch and I can give you the details. But also if you're interested, we can offer them workshops for you and your specific parents, depending on how many you have. We can do them virtually or face to face, and we need to talk from a really young age. It might seem strange that I'm talking about online safety workshops for parents of early years, but we know that 17% of 3 to 4 year olds nowadays have their own mobile phone. So for us, it's really important to start regular conversations exploring our children's online experiences from a very early age. And also coming up, and I'm happy to come back if there's interest, we have a campaign called Listen Up, Speak Up. It's a free workshop to help people, professionals as well as parents and carers, etc., build up their confidence in spotting the signs of abuse and neglect. We're having the next round of that January, February time next year. So if that's of interest, I'll be in touch about that. But tonight I'm talking pants. And bear with me with the slides, because Pants has been going for 10 years, which I'll talk about in a moment. But we've got some brand new resources. We've had a refresh of the Pants campaign. And so these slides aren't quite set in stone. So they may change in the months to come. But this is hot off the press. We haven't even done the official launch of the new resources. So it's a bit of a coup to be able to be given permission to talk about all the stuff that's happening. So I'm really pleased to be able to share it with you tonight. Just before we start, though, I know you're all professionals and you've done lots of training, etc., but it's never easy to talk about difficult topics, particularly sexual abuse. And please do know there is support available if I say anything tonight that's particularly triggering or worrying for you. I think the helpline, many people might think of our helpline as the number to call if you want to report a concern for a child, and it's obviously that, but it's there for support too. So, for example, the helpline helps parents talk with issues about coping with crying, when to leave children home alone, but they're also there for professionals too. So if you ever want to talk over something, please do reach out to the helpline. And the Childline website's great too. If you, it's not just for young people in the sense that I like to use the information on the Childline website when I'm about to talk with a young person about a certain topic. Maybe that's an emotive issue, and I like to use the website on Childline to kind of see how they talk about certain issues, the language they use, and there's some really great things on there like the calm zones. If you're working with young people and you want to signpost them on to get additional help and support, Childline is there too. So I want to talk about the Pants campaign. It's been going 10 years, as I said, and you know, it aims to protect children aged 3 to 11. Now that's a change, because we used to be just 4 to 8. It's now 3 to 11, and it aims to protect children from sexual abuse, and that's a key point if we look at this from a trauma-informed perspective. We can only try and help to protect children, and the second point is that children are never responsible for keeping themselves safe from sexual abuse. We as adults are responsible for making their environment safe and to take care of them, but children are never responsible, and we wouldn't want a child who hears the parents' messaging, hears the parents' rules, to feel responsible that this has happened and they haven't spoken out, or if it happens in the future and they're unable to speak out, we'd never want them to think that they're in any way responsible for that. So it's all about helping adults, be those parents, carers, foster carers, professionals who work with children, have simple conversations that can make a big difference, and that's what the campaign is all about. So it has 5 rules at the premise to help keep the children safe from sexual abuse. It's private's are private. Always remember your body belongs to you. No means no. Talk about secrets that upset you. Speak up, someone can help. And I know the kind of last 2 are very similar, and that's the problem when you're working with an acronym, isn't it? But actually, they're very simple rules, but they are so effective. Where did the campaign come from? It's been around, as I said, for about 10 years now. We developed it back in 2012, 2013, the winter time, and it was a key time. The Council of Europe were doing the underwear rule and had asked all member states to develop a campaign around it, and we decided at the NSPCC to adapt that and test it, and we went to parents and professionals to help us develop the messaging, which grew into the campaign that we have today. And one of the reasons why we give you this background is it's very important to set the context. At that point too, we had the scandal around Jimmy Savile, one of the most prolific sex offenders in UK history. There were other high-profile cases too, hitting the headlines, like the gangs in Rochdale. And also at that time, the NSPCC had done a massive survey, and it found that 63% of the public said that the recent media coverage had made them think more about sexual abuse. The NSPCC, as you might know, is over 135 years old. We specialise in preventing sexual abuse, and we have various services around that. Childline 2 is now part of the NSPCC. What a legacy for Dame Esther, bless her. Over 5 million children helped through Childline when she started that night back in the 80s. And, you know, a young person will reach out to Childline every 28 seconds. It's a much needed service. And from our work with children, I digress, sorry. And from our work with children and families, we know there's a real appetite for a behaviour change campaign that would really help the public talk about sexual abuse with children in a way that wasn't scary, wasn't frightening. And we also knew that at that time, for members of the public, sexual abuse topped the list of concerns relating to children, and it still does today. And for all those reasons, the catalyst was right for running the campaign. But we also know that 1 in 3 children who'd been abused did not tell anyone else at the time that it happened. So that's around 1/3 of the children not telling anyone what really had happened, and that's a significant number. And we know that parents and carers have a really important role to play in keeping children safe, but many did not feel equipped to have that conversation. They didn't know where to begin. They found it too scary. So we wanted to address that and help them build their confidence in having the conversations. And I'll talk more about this later on. So from the beginning, it was kind of parent focused, but there's evidence to suggest, and I'll talk about this, that actually the focus and the resources have been changed to reflect this. The focus should be in, you know, education settings, early years settings, as well as with parents. But the focus, that regular conversation, that embedding it in the curriculum, for example, is really effective. Also, we know that 90% of sexually abused children were abused by someone they know, and that can be other children, as the earlier speakers said. And there are various reports on peer-on-peer abuse that range from about 30% of all abuse being carried out by children. Some reports suggesting abuse by another child or someone under the age of 18 could actually be as high as 50 or 60%. But our statistical evidence suggests that 1 in 20 children in the UK have been sexually abused. And we also know that children with disabilities, complex needs, can be more vulnerable to abuse. They're 3 times more likely to be abused, and it can be very difficult for them to reach out and get help. When developing the campaign, we found that parents were very knowledgeable about stranger danger, you know, stuff like that, very comfortable talking about that as well, but they were very unaware about the statistics that I mentioned earlier about the 90% of children sexually abused by someone that they know. And parents today still find that quite shocking, or perhaps hard to believe. and hard to accept, that it could be someone that they know, not necessarily in their family, but in their community too, their close environment, or a professional engaging with their child as well. You know, so when we're doing with the research for this with professionals and parents, it did pose a lot of questions about how you'd begin to have the conversations with children. I think we have to acknowledge that for generations, it hasn't been a conversation we've been comfortable with. We wanted to reassure people that Talk Pants campaign doesn't mention sexual abuse. It doesn't say sex or sexual abuse with the child. There are no words within our messages that talk about sexual abuse. And also lots of the parents, when we were researching this, told us these are the kind of things they were thinking or feeling, like, are they old enough? How to avoid scaring them? Their adult concerns is what I'll say. What if I get it wrong? They're too young. And there are also core feelings of making them feel uncomfortable at the thought, making them scared or worried, that kind of sick feeling. But we found that after being introduced to the Pants Rule, we know that most parents, and in fact nearly all parents, feel much more confident, and that's something they can talk to their children about. And again, for professionals, those same feelings can apply too. But after our workshops, they've moved from, I'm not sure we can bring this into our, premises, but it's absolutely fine. What I would say is that all those initial wary feelings I've talked about are fine. They're all feelings that are real. But hopefully today we can give you some of the same confidence and allay some of those fears too. And there have been some real achievements with the Pants campaign. Over 1.2 million parents have had a conversation with a child about Talk Pants in the past year alone. And since we launched Talk Pants in 2013, we know that parents have had over 6 million conversations with their children about sexual abuse, and they're just the kind of conversations that we know about. And we run campaigns all over the place, all over the UK Channel Islands. Just last summer I was in Shetland and Orkney. That's me in the costume with the sheep in the bottom right. And it's fabulous because it's such a fun, easy offer, tackling a very difficult, very emotive topic, but in a really fun way, in a really engaging way, and it doesn't feel threatening at all. And in fact, we run campaigns, as you can see, all over the UK. I'm just about to have a Talk Pants week across North East Lincolnshire, for example. Week commencing 6th of November, so we've got events going on in libraries, in schools, and it's going to be I'm going to be exhausted by the end of it, but it's going to be a fun week. And it would be really good, actually, maybe down the line that we kind of come together, perhaps next year, to have our own kind of burst of activity across North Yorkshire. I think that'd be really fun to do and really impactful as well. So we know that there are key components when you want to prevent child sexual abuse, and Pants, we've done a big review because it was coming up to 10 years, and we've done a big review. We had the PSHE Association come in, test everything to do with what we had going for Pants, and we were scoring really highly, meeting all the key components, if you like, of that have been identified by Walshard et al. In the 2015 report of the key components of preventing child sexual abuse. Always telling a trusted adult, how to identify a trusted adult, and children's bodies belong to them. And actually, I've just put an aside here because we said there, it says on the screen, trusted adult. As an organisation, the NSPCC and Childline, we're moving away from saying trusted adult. I did say at the beginning, these slides are very much not complete yet. We tend to follow Childline's example by using the term safe adults, because we know that trusted adults can abuse too. So we're tending to use more safe adults. You can say safe trusted adults if you wish, but just something to think about, start thinking about in the language that you use in your places of work. Go on back to the key components. Children's bodies belong to them. Distinguishing appropriate and inappropriate touch, the types of secrets and surprises. Children are not to blame, that's really key, and correct anatomical names for private parts. And so what we did after that big review is we overhauled our resources. We've extended Pants. It's no longer 4 to 8 years old, it's 3 years old to 11 years old. There's much more trauma-informed resources available, and I'm pleased to say, particularly for you guys, because previously for Pants there was just like kind of guidance for early years. There's actual resources now for early years, which I think is really important as well. So let's have a look at some of the resources available. I won't go through, because I'm conscious of your guys' profession and your interests. I won't go through all the teaching resources that are available, but just to know there's new early years content for the first time for 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, new content right the way up to 11. There's new SEND content too. Previously as well, there'd been just guidance, but now we have proper resources for SEND, and there's fantastic Makaton resource videos, for example. These can all be found on our, it says new webpage, the NSPCC Learning, because I was working with some teachers actually in North East Lincolnshire just the other day, doing a refresher ahead of our big Pants Week. And it was surprising to hear that some of them didn't realise that Pants wasn't just on the main NSPCC website, because that webpage, the nspcc.org.uk/pants, that's geared up for parents. For you guys, for your settings, please do visit the NSPCC Learning webpage. So that's nspcc.org.uk/pants-teaching. So it's NSPCC Learning. If you just put that into any search engine, it usually comes up as the top answer. So for all the resources in your work, it's the NSPCC Learning webpage you want. You can direct parents to the Pants page on the main NSPCC website, but for you guys, it's the Learning webpage, please. Sorry for kind of labouring that point, but I think it's really good to kind of stress. And on there, you'll find, first off, there's a big 16-page document. Sounds like it's a big hefty document, but it's really important, really sets you up. It gives you things like the campaign overview, lesson structures, helps talk about safeguarding, tips for trauma-informed practice, protective interrupting, for example, you know, in case you feel a child is about to disclose when you're running a session, for example. It's about ensuring that safe learning environment, no matter what age they are, between 3 and 11. There's also in that section we've got template parent carer letters. It's really important if you're going to do any parents work to perhaps let parents know first off, one, because then they can back up the messages at home. And actually a lot of parents, when we've been doing our tours, like the fact that, you know, the kids come home singing the song and then they can do it too. There's one mum in Orkney actually, and she'd gone onto our shop and bought herself some stickers and put them on the chest of drawers, so every time they go to get dressed they would have the song, and there was an added benefit of, because her daughter was really difficult to dress, that she actually started enjoying getting dressed as such. So there's all sorts of benefits for pants. It's really great. And then also there's like the curriculum references, and you can see really easily where it fits in, etc. But for early years, so there's a whole section which you can download. This is all free of charge, remember, and we've tried to make it as simple and as easy as possible. So we've tried to set it out so you know which age, and it's rather than Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, that kind of language, because we're a United Kingdom charity, and Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales called their year groups different terms. We've gone by ages, so it's age 3 and 4, and actually for a lot of settings that works out easier. It's easy to see, isn't it? And it's really laid out, hopefully, where it tells you all about the learning opportunities. It'll tell you the resources you need for the various activities if you want to try them, for example. It's hopefully laid out in a really easy way. And so, for example, it's very similar in how it's laid out too. Hopefully that way that makes it more accessible too. So for example, you can see, I'll go back a slide, the previous slide was 3, 4, 4, 5. There's not really a much difference apart from the content, but how it's laid out. So hopefully that makes it really easy and accessible. And as I mentioned, there are SEND resources. There's an actual lesson plan now with accompanying PowerPoint and resources. This is the song and video. As part of the SEND lesson plan, you learn about labelling body parts and identifying which parts are private. Talks all about comfortable and uncomfortable touch, practicing saying no, is this a secret, and talks about safe adults, for example. Makaton, this is a brand new resource. It was put together, it was launched earlier this year. 6 videos, really great, and it's so great. So you've got the 2 teachers there from a school from the Midlands, and then you've got animations, so Pantosaurus will pop up, and then there's children as well doing the activities too. It's really great. So after today, please do check out all the resources, have a look round. There's a children's booklet too, parent carer guide, and a printable prompt card pack as well. So there's some like examples taken from the children's booklet to do with the Makaton resources. Also, there's the prompt card pack, which we've tried to make as simple as possible so they can print out and not be too costly to print out and easily to make into a keychain, which you can have young people wear around school, for example. And it's really good if you're going to be using pants in your setting, try to encourage your parents to talk pants along with you. Lots of parent resources out there. That's on the main NSPCC usual website, not the learning one, for example. Again, we have the pants song. Much to some people's annoyance, I haven't included the video, but I wanted to spare you that earworm because it is very catchy. The Aardman studio were brilliant when they put it together. They're the people, if you remember, behind Wallace and Gromit. It's really great, and it was so great that they could do that for us as a charity. It was so amazing, and the film has been seen so many times, as I said earlier on. There's parent guides. And these are in 13 languages. There's parent guides for foster carers. There's parent guides for parents and carers with a learning disability. There's parents and carers of children with autism as well. And there's children's guides as well, children with learning disabilities and children with autism. And there's the resources with Makaton too. Just some of the pictures there that you can see. We also have our NSPCC shop. I mean, Christmas is down the line, dare I say the Christmas word already. But, you know, it's a nice stocking filler if you want to buy any of the pants resources. But free of charge, on the NSPCC Learning website, you can see there is a free display pack. You can see that picture in the middle, the one with the Pantosaurus standing against the sky. That's all the stuff that you get in the display pack. So you might want to create your own displays. It's really great when you go around some places. They have like washing lines strewn off across the room with pants hanging off them. It's fabulous. And there's colouring pages and talk pants posters. If there is any interest in getting some resources, after my Talk Pants Week across North East Lincolnshire, I may have some resources left. So that, you know, do get in touch and I'll see what I can do to help out in terms of sending you out posters if needs be, etc. So Talk Pants is really fun, and hopefully you'll be using it soon too. But for me, the next steps hopefully will be that you'll explore the Talk Pants, you'll download the resources and you'll go for it and you start talking pants with your children and parents. I want to say right now though as well, because I did say at the very beginning, all these new resources, everything is still very much, we're finalising everything. There's no new resources to be added to the NSPCC website apart from one. Towards the end of the year, we're going to be creating some resources for community workers, so people who are working out in the community. So it's kind of a watch that space. And when you go on, if you go on this week to the NSPCC learning page, it might look one way now, but we're still tweaking it. We're going to hopefully change the layout of it so it's even easier to navigate. I mean, it's pretty easy now. You just kind of, it's one big page and you follow it down and just click on what you want to download. But they're going to introduce some tabs which make it easier and take you on a journey of the resources. So as you go onto the website over the next couple of weeks, you might see that it changes slightly. They're still tweaking it and everything. But it's really good stuff. There's the QR code to talk you to the Pants Learning webpage. So if you're quick, you can quickly grab that. But as I said, just put it into any search engine and it should be one of the top answers. NSPCC Learning Pants, and it comes up. But that's it. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And if there's any questions, hopefully that'll be all right to kind of share. I think I've whizzed through that. Hopefully that was of interest, but yeah.
Thank you, Gail. No, really, really interesting. Are you sure we've not got time for the pants song? I mean, definitely not.
Do you want me to play the pants song? I can put it up for you.
Yeah, well, it gives everybody a chance just to have a quick think, and then if there are any questions that anybody wants to ask, or pop in the chat bar. But please don't be cross with me, everybody, at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's going round in your heads and And so yeah, you can blame me. Because as Gail says, it is a bit of an earworm.
Oh, I'll just stop it a minute. He's started. He's pesky. Let me just share my screen first so you can get to see the full wonder that is Pantosaurus.
Feel free to join in at any point, anybody.
This is Pantosaurus. He's going to help us with our song about pants.
Pants, pants, Pantosaurus, pants, pants, Pantosaurus, pants, Pantosaurus, pants, pants.
What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts.
Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no.
Pants, pants, Pantosaurus, pants, pants, Pantosaurus.
Pantosaurus likes to wear his pants. He wears them all day long. They cover up his private parts, and that's what makes him strong. If someone asks to see or tries to touch him underneath them, he tells them no, then tells someone he trusts and likes to speak to.
What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts. Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no.
If someone asks to see or tries to touch under your pants and says to keep it secret, then you must tell them no. Then go and find someone you trust and tell them straight away. They'll say, well done for speaking out and make everything okay.
What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts. Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no.
Sing along, everybody, it's your turn.
What's in your pants belongs only to you. Your pants cover up your private parts. Your private parts belong only to you. If someone asks to see, just tell them no. If someone asks to see, just tell them no.
I love the little gnomes at the bottom. I don't know if you saw them, the dancing gnomes. They're great. So one of our volunteers did, and it's still on YouTube if you want to search for it. I think he fancied himself as the next Joe Wick. He's really energetic. But he did a dance, created a dance to go alongside the song. So if you want to check out on YouTube him, I can't remember his name unfortunately, but you just put pants dance and it comes up on YouTube. It's always a good video to play in early year settings, teaching the children how to do the dance. But we have obviously a big 6-foot mascot, Pantosaurus. I'm taking him around schools across North East Links and early year settings. We commence in 6th of November. So perhaps next year, if you guys are interested, maybe we can put our own burst of activity together. I'd be happy to bring Pantosaurus to nursery settings if that's of interest. But yeah, I'm really happy to kind of take people's ideas or suggestions to work. So yeah, it's all about working together, isn't it, to help keep children safe.
That's brilliant, Gail. Thank you so much. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Keep in touch with me about, you know, whether we can do something in North Yorkshire maybe next year. I mean, I'm sure that would be absolutely fabulous.
And
so
definitely
it's great
help as well, because I would one of the things I think is that we do need to do more awareness with parents as well. And as a partnership, we've you know, tried doing something on an evening and you know, on a small scale, but it'd be interesting to see some ideas of how we could work together to, you know, raise awareness with parents.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I think it's really great. And also the other campaign I mentioned, Listen Up, Speak Up, we can offer that to parents too, about how to help, you know, as they go about their daily lives, and if they spot something for a child that doesn't sit quite right with them, not too sure about it, it's giving them the confidence to share their concerns, you know, because, you know, a lot of people think, well, what if I get it wrong? But what if you've got it right? You know, you could be that voice for that child where no one else has that little nugget of information that could change their world for them. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to kind of work with you guys as much as possible. Online safety as well, those workshops, happy to deliver them. They're completely free. And yeah,
Oh, that's brilliant, Gail. And I think what you said is absolutely right, isn't it? It's better to be, at the end of the day, you would never lie in bed thinking, oh my word, you know, I didn't do anything. Whereas actually, if you do something and it turns out to be nothing, well, then you've done it, and you've, you know, potentially, you know, you've put those safeguarding measures in place for that child, you know, and I think it's been said before, hasn't it, Gail? I mean, by the time a child actually is responded to, how many times have they usually told somebody about it? It's quite a lot, isn't it? So you could be that,
Yeah,
you could be that difference. But are there any right,
No,
so we've
I
one
think
from Simon. Yeah, has anybody got
We'd love
any
Pants
questions
to visit.
for
Yeah.
Gail before she dashes off and has dinner with her husband? Maybe people don't want to delay you any longer, Gail.
Yeah, let's celebrate her anniversary. Thank you very much.
Just say,
Yeah,
on behalf of all of us,
I think he'll have
Gail.
written the card by now, so.
No, thank you so much.
No
I mean,
problems.
I really appreciate the fact that we delayed this purposefully so that you could actually bring these new resources to, you know, to North Yorkshire and everything. So we really do appreciate your time this evening and for sharing that with us. So thank you.
No worries. And yeah, I'm happy for you to share my email if you want. If anyone wants to get in touch, that's fine.
Yeah, are you happy just to pop it in the chat bar, Gail, before, or do you want me to?
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, I'd like to introduce Caroline Porter, who's going to be here with Sarah Atkins as well, to talk about the impact of parental conflict. Caroline, if you just want to do your presentation over me, that's fine.
Okay, thanks Hayden, that's brilliant. I was going to, so are they my slides? Sorry, I hadn't expected you to be sharing them.
No, I don't have your slides. I don't have your slides.
Oh, no, that's all right. I thought when I'd seen that come up, I thought, oh, you've got my slides. Apologies. No, I'm going to share mine. That's grand. Give me one sec. There we go. I'm thinking about it. Have they come up now? Can you?
Yeah, I can see it, Caroline. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant. Hi, everybody. Evening. Thank you for hanging on for me for the and towards the end of the session. It's lovely to be here and have so many of you here to hear this brief introduction, just kind of half an hour really, on introducing to you the importance of understanding the impact of parental conflict, parental relationships on children, particularly in the early years, and just how much those parental relationships matter. So my name's Caroline Porter. I'm with Foxstones Training and Learning, and I have been one of the kind of national trainers on this parental conflict training programme for a few years now, initially funded by the Department of Work and Pensions. It's been rolled out nationally, and we're kind of seeking to endeavour that the whole children and families workforce has a greater understanding of why this matters. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview. As Hayden's mentioned, we've also got Sarah Atkins here this evening, who is your strategic lead and your point of contact from North Yorkshire Council around this topic. So I work very closely with Sarah, and she commissions me to do training and input and to develop resources to use in this area. So great to have Sarah here as well. So sometimes when we begin to talk about parental conflict and parental relationships, that can pose some questions and some challenges for practitioners. It might be that we're asking ourselves, or making the comment that, well, we're not relationship counsellors, so why would we need to consider or understand the health of that couple or co-parent relationship? And you're absolutely right, we're not. But as we go on, hopefully you will see why it's still so important. It's important to think about what we mean by parental conflict and what it is and what it isn't. For example, it isn't domestic abuse and violence. And my presentation this evening is not talking in the context of domestic abuse. Many of you, I'm sure, will have attended lots of training over the years around domestic abuse, and that remains an incredibly important issue. This is a slightly different perspective, something that perhaps has gone under the radar in more recent times. We're going to think about the impact of parental conflict on children's outcomes and what children tell us they want and what matters to them. What we're aiming to do through this presentation, through the whole programme of work in North Yorkshire and nationally, is seek to normalise conversations about relationships and relationship challenges. That's kind of the ultimate aim, really, that we go on the same journey with parental relationships that we've been on regarding, say, mental health, where once upon a day it was seen as taboo and not something that we would talk about. And we've got to a stage where some people, of course not everybody, do feel able to talk about feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, struggling with feelings of anxiety, etc. We've normalised those terms into our conversations. And with that in mind, I want to talk to you very briefly about potential next steps and services and training that's available locally if you do identify families who might benefit from some more support. So what do we know? What are the key findings? And this is a very evidence-based area of work. There's been international and UK-based research which has found these common themes. What they found is that couple and co-parent relationships, so we are talking about parents who are together as couples, but also those who are separated and divorced, but continue to have a co-parenting relationship, that relationship has a significant impact on the way that those individual adults parent their children, as well as on the mental health and longer term outcomes of the child. So straight away, we're beginning to understand that the way that they interact with one another, the dynamic of their relationship with each other, will impact how they parent their child. And of course, we readily understand how that's going to impact on children's outcomes. We know that it's a really significant issue, that this is a widespread kind of problem, really, that where a child lives with both parents in the same household, for example, more than 1 in 10, so it's approximately 12% of those children, have at least one parent who's reporting relationship distress. We see some themes as well about those that may be potentially more vulnerable to that stress. So, for example, children living in workless families where both parents are there, but neither of them are in paid employment. Those individuals, those children are twice as likely to experience parental conflict compared to those where both parents are in work. And alongside that, we see higher levels of anxiety and depression within those family dynamics as well, and nearly twice as likely to fail in their expected levels at all stages of their education. So we see those links between outcomes for children, relationship distress, worklessness, and mental health, and very often it becomes quite difficult to know which is kind of influencing which. We understand that there is a significant link between the health of our relationships and our own physical and emotional well-being as well. We talk a lot, because it's come from the research, about this concept of conflict that's frequent, intense, and poorly resolved, as I said, whether or not parents are together or separated. It puts children at risk of poor outcomes socially, emotionally, and educationally. And it's useful to think about that terminology, frequent, intense, and poorly resolved. It's almost a good little mini checklist or assessment in your head. We're not talking about the odd argument, the odd fallout. We're talking about conflict, arguments, disagreements, distress that's happening frequently. It's a regular feature of that child's experience. We're not talking about little bits of low-level bickering. We're talking about intense conflict and how that may present in a range of different ways that we'll come back to, and how that's resolved. Is it that parents are able to work through that, negotiate, compromise, come to workable solutions, or is it never resolved? Is it kind of constantly being brought up again? Is it kind of ever present? All of those factors influence what that feels like for the child. The research has shown us that when we do have couples in those kind of distressed relationships where there's a lot of hostility, there's a lot of unhappiness, there's kind of a poor dynamic, that those adults, unfortunately, are less sensitive and emotionally responsive to their children's needs. And that's not criticism or a judgment. It's acknowledging and recognizing that having a hostile relationship with somebody takes up an awful lot of energy, and our headspace and our heart space can become, detracted or, occupied with that adult-to-adult conflict. We've also learned that where we offer evidence-based support around that parent-child relationship alone, which has been our typical response in children's services for many, many years, we've offered parenting support, we've offered behaviour strategy support for parents. We know that that's likely to be ineffective where there's ongoing conflict between the parents. So we can do all the parenting input in the world, but if those parents can't communicate, cooperate and collaborate, really we're not going to achieve many positive outcomes. We also know that parental conflict impacts on the quality of the relationship between the child and the parent. So sadly, when parents don't get on with one another, that can impact the relationship that they have with their child as well. Obviously, in some instances, this will lead to separation and divorce between the adults, and that can in itself impact on how sustained the relationship between the parent and the child and the parent that they no longer live with. We know, for example, that there is a kind of correlation between parental conflict and children not having regular, highly involved relationships with their dads. Ultimately, what we know from the research is that when parents get on well, their children do better. That doesn't mean that they all have to be happy 24/7. We're not looking for, sunshine and roses. What we're trying to encourage parents is to think about how much their relationship matters to the children, and that if they can cooperate, collaborate, communicate effectively, the children's experience is improved. And yet we've not traditionally or historically paid much mind to the relationships of between the parents unless there's been domestic abuse. So professionals may have asked themselves or asked the parents, whether it's a hypothetical reflective question or an actual question, is there a domestic abuse in this relationship? Yes or no? And asking a question that results in a yes or no answer leads us to, potentially quite a closed position. Now, it may be that the answer is yes, and then we would treat that as such. We would follow our safeguarding procedures. We would seek advice from our colleagues at Children's Services or through IDAS. But if the answer is no, we still want to be curious about what that relationship does look like. So instead of asking, is there domestic abuse, yes or no? As professionals, we want you to ask yourself the question, how do you describe the relationship between these two parents? And what does that relationship mean for the child? And it might be that you establish that the relationship is healthy, equal and cooperative, which is still useful information to understand. And if, for example, you are completing an early help assessment because a child or a family needs some extra support, it would be really beneficial to include in that the fact that, the relationship between parents is healthy, equal and cooperative. Equally, it'd be really helpful to include the fact that parents don't communicate very well, that it's quite a hostile or difficult relationship, that perhaps around the context of Billy's autism diagnosis, they're on quite different pages. It begins to open up and help us understand that really important aspect of the child's life, namely the quality of his or her parental relationship. Now, I mentioned that the DWP had done research with findings around links between parental conflict and low income and worklessness, but we know that there are other themes as well. We know that new parents, for example, are significantly more likely to experience relationship distress. More parents split up, more relationships end in the first year of a child's life than at any other stage. And we also know that around 60% of new parents say that the arrival of their gorgeous bundle of joy has a somewhat detrimental impact on their relationship with one another. And I'm going to come back to that, because obviously you guys in the early years are very often, you know, absolutely, you know, working very closely with young families, new parents, new babies. No incomes were mentioned also, and this will be relevant, more relevant for some of you in parts of the county than others. Really strong correlations between experiences of parental hostility in relationships and being a military family. Very interesting research around that, the additional stresses that those families may encounter. Interestingly as well, and again, I know this will be relevant to many of you, there is really interesting research about how having a child with special educational needs or disabilities or complex medical issues or behaviours that challenge can have a significant impact on the quality of that couple or co-parent relationship. And in fact, there is some additional training that Sarah's commissioned me to do, where we spend half the day really exploring that in great depth. And again, depending on where you are in the county, you may or may not have demographics of younger parents. Research shows us that parents who are 19 and younger may inadvertently be more likely to expose their children to hostility and conflict between them as a couple, as they adjust to, you know, kind of becoming parents, perhaps when their relationship in itself isn't that cemented or long lasting. So I've mentioned about new parents. This is a really important area. We know that during pregnancy, the quality of the parents' relational experience up to and around the birth of their new child will have a significant impact on the relationship that they share as new parents, and crucially, the relationship that they build with their child as well. Of course, this is a very kind of multifaceted, complex thing. It's impacted and influenced by their own relational history, including how they were parented and what their parents' relationship was like, support networks, and what they've learned and seen about building relationships and resolving conflict. I've said this isn't about domestic abuse, and it's not, but it is also useful to note that, of course, during pregnancy, we do know that where there is abuse, things can get worse. So it's a really important time in terms of understanding the quality of relationships and asking ourselves that question: how would I describe the relationship between these two parents to be? As well, it's important to note this isn't just about the first child, it's also subsequent children, which we'll come on to. Research has also found that there is a significant correlation between experiences of postnatal depression and the relationship quality between those two parents. We see a greater severity of postnatal depression symptoms occurring in both women and men who were less satisfied with their couple relationship, whereas studies have shown that women who declare a deeper satisfaction with their couple relationship also displayed a greater sense of mental well-being and less symptoms, of fewer symptoms, sorry, of postnatal depression. As I've said, thinking about this early stages, we know that more couples split up in the first year of a child's life than at any other time. So we really need, and one of the reasons why I'm here tonight is we really need frontline practitioners at this particular transition point to be actively supporting new parents to prepare for potential conflict and offer them opportunities for strategies to cope when those issues do arrive. And there is support out there. And obviously, you know, this is really relevant for any of you that work with those young families. I mentioned this isn't just the first child. We see that the arrival of a second baby is also a period of significant transition for parental relationships. And this is so relevant to you guys, maybe that you've already got the first child in your setting, and then parents are expecting baby number 2. We know that among couples expecting a second child, there's a real danger of sort of destructive communication and social support and existing vulnerabilities kind of being influenced, and it kind of having an impact on the way that that family functions. So research has shown that parental conflict or negative couple interactions at this prenatal stage and over the transition into parenthood is associated with some particular parenting behaviours. So decreased parental efficacy. So this is about kind of the, you know, effectiveness of the parents, their belief in themselves, their feeling of belief in their ability to parent their child successfully, and we often see more competitive parenting occur, particularly with the arrival of the second child. We see links with low breastfeeding rates. We see links between parents being more emotionally withdrawn. We see the links between parental distress and fathers lowered cooperative co-parenting. So that's about how much parents respect and support one another's parenting efforts. And we see also that mums have a lower support or less enthusiasm for fathers' parenting styles, which in turn leads to that competition, as I've mentioned, and can result in lesser father involvement in parenting. So it's thinking about how all of these things interact with one another. We said how they're getting on with one another will influence how they parent their child, which will influence the child's experience. So what does that mean for the child? What might they be experiencing? Of course, instantly we may think that those children are subject to hearing arguments, name calling and criticism between their adults that they both, you know, love and care for. Equally, it can be that silence. It may be the complete lack of communication, the atmosphere, the tension that can be kind of present constantly within family homes. Because of the parenting impact that we've talked about, we can see a lack of routine or consistency, more unpredictable parenting style. It may be that there is a lack of warmth, love and laughter within that home environment. And for our older littlies, obviously not for our very teeny tinies, but even very young children, being used as the judge, the spy, the messenger, the mediator or the confidant, being asked to take sides, being asked to play an active role in that parental relationship. So being asked to tell tales on the other parent, being asked to choose who's in the right or who's in the wrong, being exposed to kind of, you know, too much information about what the parent's going through. And when children are exposed to this, of course, it has an impact. Research shows us that there is a correlation between exposure to parental conflict and increased levels of anxiety, depression, aggression and behaviour issues, as well as kind of educational outcomes. This may present, of course, as you guys will be more than well aware, in the children's behaviour. And these next couple of slides are taken from Young Minds website. Young Minds produced a section on their website to help parents understand what they may see in their child or young person who is experiencing parental conflict, parental breakdown, separation, etc. We know that babies as young as 6 months old may exhibit higher physiological symptoms of distress, such as elevated heart rate, if they're exposed to obvious hostile exchanges between their parents. And that's compared to exchanges between non-parental adults. We don't see the same kind of response. Infants and children under 5 may show signs of distress by crying or acting out, freezing, as well as withdrawing from or attempting to intervene in the actual conflict itself. For our very young ones, we've got there, you know, it may be that their routine is disrupted, they're picking up on the parent's emotional state, they're more irritable, they're fussier, they become angry or naughty, as parents may see it. And so it's kind of trying to keep our minds open if parents are describing problematic or difficult behaviour or a change in behaviour, that there may be a link with parental relationships. For our slightly older ones, it can be incredibly confusing and frightening if their parents' relationship is unpredictable or hostile. It may be that we see developmental delay or developmental regression as they go back to behaviours that they'd left behind, and it may be that they start to display sort of behaviour parents may regard as challenging, aggressive, confrontational, attention seeking, as it may be interpreted by parents. So we know that there is an impact. Of course, what you guys may see as well is that kind of behaviour being played out in your setting. It may be that you're seeing through their language or through their play behaviour or words which give cause to concern. And I've got a short video, very short video clip that I want to share with you. I'm hoping this is going to play. I'm just going to stop sharing a minute.
I'm not finished, kids. Can you come back in a minute after you ate your dinner, okay? Stop with me, it's not bedtime, okay? I don't know now. Oh, sorry.
So short but quite useful clip, I think, to give us a feel for, you know, the things to look out for, noticing children talking about relationships or modelling behaviour that gives us cause for concern. Fantastic. So what can we do? What is our appropriate response? As I said, our ultimate aim is that we want professionals to be interested, curious in the status of relationships, and help parents to reflect that relationship challenges are normal, break down those barriers that this is a taboo subject. We've all had relationship challenges at some time in our life, and we want to open up that dialogue. It may be that you can look for opportunities to sensitively ask about the relationship. So it might be linking that to the context of what's going on for the child. You know, gosh, you've got a lot on your plate. How are you guys getting on? Those sorts of things. And I've got some suggested questions on my next slide that we think about, and we encourage the parents to think about what their conflict or their relationship distress might mean for the child, and we help them to join those dots. We encourage them to reflect what their relationship looks like and feels like for their child, and we remember that it's important that we don't make assumptions, that we don't try and fix it, and we don't take sides, but that we can signpost to support. Here we've got some suggested questions, and these slides will be coming out to you. This isn't a script or a checklist. It's just ideas of ways that we can weave in questions about relationships without feeling that we're being too intrusive. So, as I said, you know, with everything that's going on for you guys at the moment, what's that meaning for you and your partner, or you and your child or the parent, recognising some will be together, some won't be. All the stress that you've described, that must put pressure on your relationship. What's that been like for you? Do you notice you're having more arguments or falling out more? What do you think that means for the children? My favourite question. How do you think your child would describe the relationship between you and their other parent? What words do you think they might use, and why would they say that? And of course, for yourselves, it may be that you actually know what the child would say, because the child is saying mummy and daddy are sad, or angry with each other, or it always feels cross. Noticing those kind of things. Asking parents in a really sensitive way. So when do you guys get the chance to be a couple, not just parents? How do you take care of your own relationship? When was the last time you got a date night? And then, of course, You know, what do you think might be helpful? What support might you need? And one of the support mechanisms that is available in North Yorkshire, free of charge, and that we really want you to publicise and circulate, and Hayden has flyers that he can send out to you that you could put on your social media pages or on your website, or have paper copies pinned up in your setting, are these. So North Yorkshire has bought into the license to be able to offer these 3 free online courses for parents across North Yorkshire. There is Me, You and Baby 2, which is for new and expectant parents, helps them understand how their relationship may be impacted by the arrival of baby. Crucially, it talks to them about how child's brain development and early experiences will be shaped by their relationship, and gives them tips and advice about how to communicate effectively. The middle one there, Arguing Better, that's for parents who are together as a couple. Doesn't matter how old their child is. That just kind of encourages them to think about the way they communicate, talks and acknowledges about how easy it is to fall into kind of unhelpful habits around communication, perhaps being quite snippy with each other or lots of bickering. Again, it talks about what that might mean for the children and gives them tips for doing things differently. And then last but by no means least is Getting It Right for Children. This is aimed at separated or separating parents, and crucially gives them an insight into how children experience relationship breakdown and what they can do to make it as painless for their children as possible, how they can avoid getting into those tit for tat hostile relationships with their child's other parent. So they're really fantastic courses. They are all available online. And when you get these resources, as I say, you'll have the flyers, the slides, the links. Also, there is a link to a practitioner guide. So if you wanted to go and have a look at those, it gives you more information about the courses. It gives you almost like a sales pitch thing so that you can help explain the courses to parents. And you can also get like social media images if you want to promote them. And then this is the link to the parents resource. All parents need to do is click on the link or scan the QR code. They will be asked to select which county they're in. So there's a map of Northern England, they pick North Yorkshire, and then just by adding their name and email address, they can register an account and access those courses for free. I've also included some links to national support that's available, some really fantastic websites, which again, you may be able to promote and share information about through your platforms. Click Relationships is a great, really accessible website, which has lots of evidence-based support about the challenges of family relationships. And there's animations, there's quizzes, there's all sorts of stuff. It's really, really good. Family Lives equally has a similar sort of approach. Gingerbread, a great resource for separated parents who are perhaps coming to terms with being a lone parent and may need some kind of practical, emotional, financial support and advice. So they're just some of them. And See It Differently is great for scenarios and kind of little videos that parents or practitioners can watch. Young Minds, I've already mentioned. They have got a great section on understanding how children may be impacted, children of different ages and stages may be impacted. So that's giving you a really quick overview and introduction to the topic. And then I want to hand you over to Sarah Atkins, who can say a little bit about her role and the support that she can offer to those of you in North Yorkshire.
Hi everybody, and yes, Caroline's alluded to already, we've been doing this Reducing Parental Conflict programme now since around about 2018. The funding that's come through from the DWP has paid for practitioners within the whole of the children and families workforce to attend mostly one-day training, which is more of an intensive training session than what you've received tonight. This is really just an awareness raising and an overview. And within that, we've also commissioned Caroline to design a toolkit for the practitioners within North Yorkshire Council to use with families when they are working with those families where they've recognised and identified that parental conflict is one of the issues that's affecting their children. And then we've also, as Caroline said, just put in for some more funding for training around reducing parental conflict and SEND. And we've also put that in as a bespoke package. So we've worked with our colleagues in the Disabled Children's Service to put that package together to ensure that it sort of fits everything that we need to know about as in terms of working with parents of children with additional needs. We've got one more year left around the DWP funding for 24-25. I would really like to try and get more information out to early years settings, because I think it's a really important part that you can play as in terms of talking to parents, and the earlier that we can do that about the importance of their relationship and the impact that obviously if they've got relationship distress going on and that has on their children's outcomes, it's much easier and much better if we can start those conversations really early to prevent that escalation. And so anything that I can help you with, as in terms of providing further training or providing some resources, just let me know, and we can put my email address in the chat and people can get back to me. We've also now got 23 relationship champions. They are all made up of internal practitioners who are working within the Children and Families Service. Again, if anybody would be interested in becoming a relationship champion from the early years, that would be absolutely brilliant. We're hoping to have a Relationship Champions Development Day later in March next year with speakers and workshops and so on, so just to help and support you to do that. But also it's a great sort of forum where you work with lots of other people around the Reducing Parental Conflict programme. We also look at working with separated parents. As Caroline said, we're trying to sort of do the two things together because they don't come in isolation. We know that there's so much conflict when parents separate. And we're also looking at child-on-parent conflicts and working more inclusively with parents. They're the four sort of areas of my work that I'm concentrating on at the moment. So again, we're hoping next year that we'll be able to do more training around those subjects and those themes. So, so hopefully you found tonight interesting and you've got a sort of idea of what we're doing out there around relationship distress, but hopefully you'd be really interested in trying to do a little bit more training. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, I've just put a message in the chat bar, Sarah, just to say that if you need anything sending out at all, obviously you can do that through me, through my team in FIS. We can do it in our key messages and everything like that. So yeah, so thank you both very much. Another fantastic presentation. Has anybody got any questions? I know there's one about the slides and I mean, certificates you get when you go on. I'm right here, Hayden, aren't I? When you go back on NES and fill in the thing, and then the slides and obviously the recording from this evening, it will be available sort of on the Safeguarding Partnership website, but then usually sort of Hayden, you send me the link, don't you? And I can send that out through, I usually send that out through key messages as well.
Yeah, that's correct, but I don't have a copy of Caroline's slides if she's happy for us to share them.
Yeah, and like I popped earlier, we can't unfortunately share Gail's slides because they were so sort of new. They're not sort of, you know, I think you are about literally the first people to see them as such. So unfortunately, we can't share the NSPCC's ones, but obviously it's recorded and everything. But thank you both very much. I think parental conflict is just one of those things that, you know, it's just such a, not a hidden subject, but everybody thinks about domestic abuse, don't they? And that's sort of like, yeah, absolutely. So are there any questions for either Sarah or Caroline, or? can we let these lovely people go?
Well, we've got no questions, but Sarah
No.
has her email address in the chat
Oh, yeah.
as well. So
Yeah,
okay.
lovely.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
ever
much
so much.
for
Thank you.
that. It was really informative.
Thank you.
And thank you, Caroline, as well. Yeah, thank you.
So can you see my screen, my slides?
I can indeed.
Okay, it's just coming up blank at the moment for me, so I'm not quite sure why. Okay, so hi, I'm Hayden Rees-Jones. I'm the Policy and Development Officer for the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership, but I'm also the CEOP Education Ambassador for the partnership as well. I talked a little bit about e-safety last time. I'm going to just do a little bit more about e-safety this time as well. And particularly it's about, we've had some queries about the use of photography on social media and promotion of settings and that sort of thing. So we just wanted to really raise the awareness in terms of using photographs on social media and whatever, is that whenever you want to do that, any setting must ensure that you have explicit consent to be able to share any images of the children that you're caring for. That needs to be written, and to display any photographs of children on social media or websites. Basically, this all comes under sort of like data protection law, as well as just obviously good safeguarding practice as well. But parents and carers must understand what they are agreeing to. So you've got to make them aware that a photo or a video is going to be taken, explain what the image is going to be used for. This can all be just done on the consent form, asking for their consent to share their image and record this on a written consent form as well. So I suggest that maybe you would have a predefined template that you can just hand to parents and get them to sign it to say that they either consent or don't consent. Tell them how long their consent is valid for and how long you will keep the image for. So this is still again about data protection and retention of information and that sort of thing. So, you know, maybe say that once a year you're going to ask them again about whether or not they have consent, or you might want to make that, you know, once a term or something, or whatever is appropriate for your setting. What you also need to do is explain what you will do if a child or a parent changes their mind and withdraws a consent at a later stage, because it is entirely possible that, you know, a parent might think, actually, I don't want my child on there. Maybe it's because it's linking in with something that's going on with, you know, within their relationships, and I don't want the child to be identified from where it is because it may put that child at risk. So make that clear about how you would deal with that, and obviously act accordingly and promptly with that. But also keep a record of the written consent that parents, carers and children have given for any images that have been used. It's also good practice to share your photography policy with children and parents and seek their consent at the beginning of the year. You may also need to get additional consent in specific cases. For instance, if you're going to bring in a professional photographer, you might need to ask, or you will need to ask him, do you want your child to be photographed? Or maybe if you've you know, done something that's caught the attention of the local and national media, or, you know, you're doing some other sort of promotional campaign work, or maybe, you know, you're doing something that's sponsorship based, or, you know, having some other sort of event. All of these things may attract the press and the media, and you do need to consider how you're actually going to use that, how you're going to obtain that consent. Other than consent, as a setting, you must know if there are any children who are vulnerable. So, for example, a lack child, or a previously cared, child who's been in care or fostered, as these images should not be displayed. So, for example, I know someone who is a adopted child, and their image never goes onto social media, because even though they're not in the area where that they were adopted, you know, there is a possibility that members of the previous family might identify them from there and seek them out. So it's just a security protection for the child. And remember that images used with consent in social media and promotions that are supporting your business. So you really should also consider the appropriateness of those images and avoid the use of any image that's not appropriate. Something that maybe objectifies or sexualizes a child. You shouldn't even be taking these images in the first instance, let alone using them to promote your setting either. There is guidance, very good guidance, that is on the NSPCC's website, and the link is on the screen, you know, there as well. So just bear that in mind. I think they've actually got a template on there that you might want to use as well. So there's a lot of information that's available to you to guide you through it, because at the end of the day, you know, you don't want to be using information appropriately. Another thing that we should also say is, in terms of your policy, you should have a policy that photos are only taken with your business camera and not by members of staff phones and stuff like that. And then, you know, obviously that, because that information does not stay within your organization, it would then be on people's personal phones, which can then be shared or used in ways that maybe you would not have consented to as a business as well. So it's you know, highly important that you make sure that cameras that are being used or videos that are being taken are only being used by equipment that you supply, basically. We also have more guidance on the use of photos and social media. There is a 1-minute guide on the Nyscp website under our procedures, practice guidance and 1-minute guide section under professionals, which talks about the use of social media as well. So what this guide does is it explores some of the issues that are in relation to friending people, the parents of people who you're working with, or even children, because even though there is supposed to be a 13-year-old limit to have children having certain types of accounts, you know, parents do set up profiles for children at a very young age. I know, you know, people even set them up for the dogs and stuff like that. I've got friends who have done that. But you do need to make sure that you are observing good practice in relation to your engagements with people on social media as well, and all of your staff should be, so they should be briefed, and that 1-minute guide that we have there will really help to direct your staff in terms of what they should and should not be doing online. The Early Years Safeguarding Audit Tool, which is also available from the Nyscp website, also asks to providers to consider their practice guidance in this area as well. And again, the NSPCC is an excellent resource to obtain information. I would like to say almost as good as our website as well, but it's probably a little bit better. But they have further guidance in relation to photography and sharing images and guidance, which you can look at from the website. The other thing I wanted to do is just really give you an update in terms of some of the things that the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership has been doing as you know, over the last few months that you might want to be aware of. We produce, as you know, a lot of policies, procedures, practice guidance for people, and there's been a lot of those released. This is a list of the ones that were released in the last quarter, and what I would just say in relation to all of those is that for those, some of them won't be necessarily relating to you, but there are some that are definitely, you know, linked to your organizations as well. You know, so if you've got, you know, very early years, very young children, managing injuries to non-independently mobile children, practice guidance. If you are working with families who may be, you have concerns about a pregnant mother, and you think there might be concealed, denied, or late presentation of pregnancy, that could be relevant. Parental substance misuse and alcohol is definitely relevant to you as well. Obviously, modern slavery is probably not quite as high up on your agendas, but maybe you're involved with a family who is going through child protection proceedings, and as an establishment, when you attend a child protection conference, you disagree with the verdict of that conference or some of the arrangements that are in there, you have the right to be able to flag that up to the IRO, and that would be done through the professional resolutions practice guidance that identifies the process to go on there. We've obviously got guidance as well, quite comprehensive, about writing a child protection policy for early years providers as well. And then we have the two assessment tools, one for childminders, one for early years, which we really do urge you to complete that tool, because it is a very good tool for assessing how you are towards the early years framework and other requirements that are imposed on you as a provider, and it will allow you to identify where you need to put actions in place, and you can put yourself timescales and that sort of thing as well, so you can monitor your progression towards achieving all of that. In terms of our podcast has now also turned into a vodcast. So if you don't know what the difference is between a podcast and a vodcast you can get on your phone, and it's an audio, so you'll go to iTunes or Spotify, somewhere like that. A vodcast is something that's probably more akin to a YouTube video, but basically we release all of our podcasts and vodcasts at the same time and with the same content. It's just obviously some people prefer to see things as opposed to listen to things. So we try to accommodate every style of learning for people. Also at the moment, again, I know that it's not maybe necessarily important for you in terms of like the children, but obviously in terms of maybe your staff and stuff like that, there is the awareness about modern slavery, because we've just come through modern slavery week last week. So we've got some guidance about myth busting modern slavery in relation to that, and we will be working with the Adults Partnership and the Community Safety Partnership to produce two more. One is focusing on adult safeguarding in terms of modern slavery, and then the other one in terms of children. So if you want to listen to any of our podcasts, then you can just find us on Spotify if you use that, or there's various different other providers. We're also on there as well. In terms of upcoming masterclasses, just so that you're aware, we do have our masterclasses for November and December. These are on a Wednesday lunchtime. We try to fit them around school term time. So obviously the first is the first Wednesday of the month, which is when we normally try to do them, but it is the middle of half term in North Yorkshire. So we've knocked it on a week. So it's the 8th of November. So anybody who only works term time can actually access that. We've got multi-ages child exploitation in January. If you want to find out about learning from the LADO, about some of the cases that have been to the LADO that are where we can tease out some information about that, then that's the 7th of February. Again, probably not as important for your organisations, but we do have the counter-terrorism local profile in 2024. That is the only, or one of the only masterclasses that we do not record. But for more information, just visit our training page, which is under professionals on our website. What I would say is, on the completion of any masterclass, and this one included, so this will answer the question that I think was put in the chat earlier on, you will be sent an email to say, can you give us your feedback? And there's a feedback questionnaire online. That what we have to do is, in order to do that, we have to say that you've been here. So we tick you off on the attendance list, which is why it's important to always make sure that when you book your attendance, you do it for each person. rather than, you know, have 10 people sitting around on screen sort of thing, because otherwise we will only assume that it's only one person there, because we can't see the rest of that feedback. But what we'll do is we'll send you an email to say, can you please log on? When you log on, you'll go and you will be able to complete a questionnaire, and when you've completed the questionnaire, you will then be able to get the certificate for attending this course. Unless otherwise stated, and you know, obviously because there are sometimes copyright issues, or in the case of the counter-terrorism local profile, we always record our masterclasses and they go onto our YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/ and then the @ symbol like you would have in an email, and then Nyscp. But we also put all of the details of those onto social media. So that's Facebook, Twitter or X, depending upon which way you like to call it. And we're now on LinkedIn as well. So you can follow us on LinkedIn if you're plugged into that as well. I'll now hand over to Helen, unless anybody's got any questions about what I've just talked about.
Lovely, thank you, Hayden. I can't see any questions. I promise I will be really, really quick, because it's 10 to 9 and I'm sure everybody's shattered and I'm sure everybody's ready for the pyjamas on. Next slide, please, Hayden. It was just to say that obviously on every monthly key messages that I send out, there is usually some kind of safeguarding, and it's usually something that's either cropped up, that's come into FIS, or it's cropped up on somebody's Ofsted inspection report. So there is usually something on key messages. So I would urge you, please share them with all your staff to make sure that they're up to date. And then obviously if you need to go back, they're all stored on the CYPS website, and the link is always on the top of every monthly key messages, and it's there again for you. So next slide, please, Hayden. I thought it was just handy just to put, is the next slide up, Hayden? Yeah, brilliant. I just thought it was handy because we get a lot of people saying, how do they access everything on the Safeguarding Partnership website? The easiest way is literally to go in to the search bar and put in early years. And that is the best way. And then what it does is it brings you up sort of the next screen, which is the next slide. And that sort of has the way that the Safeguarding Partnership website works is the number of hits it brings you up at the top. So as you can see, like on page 1, there's the Safeguarding Partnership, the updated safeguarding audit tools, and the guide to writing a policy. So I would just urge you to sort of have a look at those. And then if you scroll down on the second page, again, it just shows you there's the e-bulletins, but also there's the document that's got the key contacts on. So again, you know, we don't send these out because if they're updated, the updated ones are on the partnership website. So if you just go and have a look, but yeah, I think the key contacts is on page 2. And then the next slide, please, Hayden. This has got use again. I say there's the key contacts one, there's the audit tools, and then there's other useful links there that you'll find really, really handy. Next slide, please. Again, just to take you through where all the training courses are, and sort of if you click on professionals, resource library, training, it all, you know, one way or another, you will sort of come to the resource that you need. And again, it's just making use of that professionals tab on the actual safeguarding website.
Can I just add on that one there? If you just move your mouse over professionals, there will be a long sub menu that will appear. Training is right at the bottom of that menu. So just, you know, keep going down until you see when on the blue menu that appears, it's easily accessible from there. So just, you know, just keep an eye out from it for that.
Lovely, thank you. And then the next slide just shows you, I think I put these dates already in key messages. I think we've got a delay on these slides, Hayden. The next masterclasses, we've already put the dates in. We're already working on who we can have as speakers. I'm sure you'll agree that sort of, you know, the two presentations and obviously early help as well were fabulous tonight, and we never stop learning, do we, about safeguarding. So those, and they are available to book already on NYES, so they are available. And then just a quick NYES again, just to go through NYES. This is a really good slide. Just shows you sort of like what sort of are the essential safeguarding, because we get asked that a lot in FIS, and so that slide, I won't read it all out. I know you've been sent this before, but it'll be there on the slides. But it is really, really good, just as a check to go back and think, right, okay, well let's do safeguarding children, let's do domestic abuse. This is obviously all part and parcel of it as well. And then the final slide, because we've got very high tech in North Yorkshire, we've now got some QR codes, which you know, they're available just so you can click on them if you're using QR codes and things like that. So it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's been heavy. I know there's been a lot of information, but I'm sure you found it really beneficial. And please, if there's anything in particular that you want, just let me know, and we'll try and feed it into the masterclass, because obviously it's about you. So thank you ever so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, everyone.